listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the NFL Draft odds analysis and preview for Friday, April 24th, 2020. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, folks, here we go with a recap of round one in the NFL and the morning of day two in the NFL draft. Brian Blessing, Bruce Marshall, we are in Las Vegas. And, Bruce, it was a treat to actually have what we can deem to be a live sporting event. And it was really fun to try to put the Rubik's Cube together. You and I on my radio show in Las Vegas did our annual mock draft show on Thursday, and it was fun to follow along. And I actually got in a little contest with a bunch of guys where we were just going after it and tallying points, which actually made it quite fun to really pay attention deep into the draft on the back end. But it was a true treat before we even dive into what went down, just to have something that was actually pertinent.
Yeah, I know. It was this became the most single event discussed over the last 6 weeks since that the Miami Hurricanes, Florida Gators, week 0 last year, which was about all we talked about for 2 months.
Bruce, you can make the case.
Yeah.
It was the most discussed event ever.
I know.
We had a kid. You're right. I mean, it was 5.5 weeks of talking about this.
Yes.
I mean, we only talk about a Super Bowl for 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, it was like we were living sort of at the NFL Combine in Indianapolis for like the 5.5, 6 weeks here. I mean, we were inundated with it, which was fine because it was something that was real. I mean, actually happening. Like we've talked about before, Brian, this time of the year is usually pretty crowded on the calendar. We've got the Stanley Cup and NBA playoffs going on. MLB is well into its first month of play. We have just had the Masters. We would have had the Kentucky Derby coming up next week. So now, though, we didn't have any of that except the draft. The draft always generates some buzz. It generated all the buzz this year because it was the only thing going. And, yeah, it was kind of cool. I felt good. We did our little thing on the radio, which was really good fun yesterday. I had some of my picks there. Now, what I put up on the gold sheet, this was my best first round I ever had. 10. I got 10 of them right. I don't think I've got 8 of them before. Now, the first several picks went sort of to form. My Denver radio show is going to like on the gold sheet. I had Jerry Jeudy going to Denver. Now, on our show yesterday, somebody picked Jeudy before I got to make Denver's pick, so I took his teammate from Alabama, Ruggs, on your show. But for my gold sheet thing, I had Jeudy there, so they'll like me in Denver. Now the Broncos just have to win. But it was interesting, and it was very interesting. I thought right at the end, the running back prop for the first round, which was basically a half. So you just needed one pick, and DeAndre Swift kept waiting. And then out of the blue, the Chiefs pulled the rabbit out of the hat with another SEC runner, a guy I liked a lot, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And at the end.
Don't even talk about it, please.
I thought he was a guy that might I had a one of the parlay props I released was Swift, Edwards-Helaire, Dobbins is 1, 2, 3 for the runners. Now, Swift isn't going to get one, so that goes out the window there. But I didn't have time to mention Edwards-Helaire yesterday. That was the sneaky pick. I thought guy might move up the board a little bit, and there he did.
Well, the funny thing is I had 10 spot on as well, and I would have crushed the thing. The misses I had Tua going 3. I actually, plotted the course for the trade. Literally had all the guys right. But I handicapped the trade. The trade never happened. I had 2 or 3 and a coup to 5. If I'd have just gone there, the trade didn't happen, I would have crushed the thing. And in fact, this deal that our little thing we did, just as a quick aside, because it got us through the night. A good friend of ours, Mike Lewis, is a sportsbook director here in town. And honestly, the thing that was fun about it, we were out on the patio all night long, and I invited him over, and we had dogs and burgers on the grill, albeit, he never got closer than 10 feet to me. It was nice to see another human being, and we got in this little pool, and we had such great fun with it. And I won the thing. On the next to last pick, I had Gladney, and you actually got points if you were a pick within or 2 picks within. And thankfully I won the thing because I was going against, for the most part, hockey writers. And I'm like, I've talked about this thing I should have won the thing because I've done nothing but talk about this for 5 weeks, right? And I'm going against all these hockey guys, and I won it on the next to last pick. But the Allaire thing, Edwards Allaire, oh my God. The funny thing is, Bruce, I saw a report this morning, I don't know if it was NFL.com. They said literally there were GMs around the league, and they had cameras in their war rooms. There were guys ripping up papers and throwing stuff against the wall when it happened. And literally, I'm sitting on the patio, and I screamed, "No!" I've been drooling over this kid. I thought, they had the other running backs rated ahead of him, and I'm thinking maybe the Bills do something to put him alongside Singletary. That was my sincere hope that the Bills were going for this kid. Man, that's honestly, at the end of the night, that's the pick in the first round. You're sitting there going, you got to be kidding me. Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and the weapons they got. Wait till you see what this kid brings to the table. Yikes.
Yeah.
The best got better.
Oh, yeah, that was a nice steal there for the Chiefies there. The other stuff, and it's typical draft stuff, though. All this talk about Tua, they had him draw. I had guys draw. I saw some pundits dropping him to the middle of the first round. They were off the mark. It still gets me, though. I mean, how it's the proof of this stuff will be down the road and how these guys all perform. Every year, though, we also see the stuff off of Indianapolis and the Combine, and a lot of these teams, they just go so overboard for what's happening at the Combine, and they overrate or underrate guys. A lot of teams get these guys look more at that than what guys did production-wise as a college player, which I think is a mistake. Just my own personal thing. I think more often than not, that's been proven out over the years.
I agree.
And these guys make mistakes left and right every year. And again, I wonder, here's another. Now, Jordan Love dropped a little bit further than some people thought. He was down there, Green Bay. I think that's kind of an interesting development.
What do you make of that? Okay, yeah, I'll tell you what. So let's just trade Rodgers to the Patriots and get it over with.
Yeah, wow. I mean, this is interesting. But I'm again one of those skeptical on Love because again, he was an Indianapolis guy, and then all the Mahomes comparisons. That's a pretty tall bar to clear, and everybody who physically sort of reminds of Mahomes, these guys are thinking, here's the next Mahomes. No.
It's a copycat league. It's a
copycat league, and they make mistakes so often, especially with quarterbacks.
I'll throw this at you. I mean, we shall see, and you give the guy the benefit of the doubt. And to me, the jury's still out, where time will ultimately be the decider on all this stuff. I mean, I don't know, what Mayock was thinking going with Pharrell last year that high, and they hit it with Jacobs, the running back. I still question their first round pick last year. And to me, the Ruggs kid, maybe there's your combine guy, Bruce. I mean, he runs a 4.2. He makes it look easy. He's a rocket sled. I know we had talked about this. Yeah, he could be Tyreek Hill. He could be Marquise Goodwin. I mean, he could be great. He could be just a guy that runs around fast. But, it's almost like Al Davis floated the envelope down from the sky. Okay, I get it. And part of it is they clearly took the guy Denver wanted. Well, Denver ends up with Jerry Jeudy. So at the end of the day, if they're wrong on Ruggs, I mean, they punched themselves in the face, for close to a decade. And then you go to the Damon Arnett pick. He may end up being a terrific football player, Bruce. But for the love of God, they could have got him in the second round. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he would have probably been there in the second round, but they obviously liked him a lot. We'll see about all this stuff. Even Josh Jacobs, let's see how durable he really is. Let's see if he never had, even at Alabama, I mean, his workload was never that big. And, he ended up getting hurt last year. And running backs, this happens a lot. The shelf life for these guys is not as long as a lot of people think. So I think Jacobs, when he played, he looked pretty good last year, but I'll even reserve judgment on him down the road and doing this stuff. And I'm telling you, I mean, John Gruden, the Raiders made improvement last year, but it's been a long time since a Gruden team really did anything. We're talking well over a decade, and because he wasn't coaching for most of the last decade or 12 years. But I'm hardly convinced about him either. So we'll see. We'll see how the Raiders go. But I'm reserving judgment.
I know. All right. Well, first of all, before I even go down this road, help me out. The DB from Auburn. You know how to say his name? Noah Ig. You got a shot?
Igbinohene.
What?
Igbinohene.
Igbinohene. All right. Well, the good news about this is, from this day forward, we've got Tua and we got Noah. There's no reason to even bother start talking these guys' last names. I'm just kidding. But I look at that, and they have 3 first-round picks. All right, the Tua thing, we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Then you get the tackle from USC, Austin Jackson, and then the DB from Auburn, probably really, really good football players. I just don't know. 3 first-round picks. You would like to think, man, you're wowed by what they did, and I think they were terrific, the Dolphins, in free agency, and they showed some fight last year, and they gave up so much to get to this day. And again, time's going to be the judge, but I got to be honest with you, bud, wasn't overly wowed by it.
Yeah, they in free agency they did a lot, and they added players at every level of their defense in free agency. I mean, Byron Jones was one of the top cornerbacks in the free agent pool there. They add him, Kyle Van Noy at linebacker, Shaq Lawson, sort of a semi-impact defensive end. So they did a lot of work in free agency on their defense, and at corner, I don't know that's. Just personal thought. I thought they could have maybe waited a bit there. They had their pick of running backs at that spot, and that's the one area they really hadn't upgraded that much. Jordan Howard is not. I mean, he's not going to solve much for them at running back. And I thought they had their pick. They could have had Edwards-Helaire. They could have had Swift. I thought they would have gone running back there. Now they may well go that way here in day 2, and there's going to be chances for them as well. But I thought that was a little bit. Since that was their primo free agent signing was out on the corner to go that way in the first round, I was a little bit surprised.
How about the wide receiver position itself and how it played out? The run kind of came, and then Ayuk goes to the Niners. Basically, I think you're talking a carbon copy of Deebo Samuel's there. Man alive, I mean, I think the Niners, I think are going to be happy they got this kid. But the wide receiver position itself, we had talked about the depth of it. It sure seemed like the depth of the position was working against itself there, that some really good guys would drop. T. Higgins is still on the board, and I think there are still more good ones that are out there.
Oh, yeah. Higgins is on the board. Mims from Baylor, Chenault from Colorado.
I've got a funny feeling, Bruce,
yeah.
Forgive me, that I think the Chenault kid could be the polarizing one. I think if Higgins dropped, Mims is a boomer bust kind of guy. I could see somebody trading up to get Chenault high in the second round. I think he might be the first wide receiver going tonight. If Higgins is dropping, the injury thing with Chenault was the only reason he dropped. Someone could be catching a home run here, getting that kid. I think he might be the first wide receiver to go tonight.
I think so. I mean, Chunk plays. He's great. There's kind of fluky sort of injuries the last couple of years at Colorado. The first half of 2018, I thought he had a case for the Heisman. He was that dominant. And after the catch, I mean, he bowls over people. This is the most powerful running receiver I've seen, and you can use him, jet sweeps. You can line him up at running back too. He is a special player, and I think he's going to really be a reward for somebody. And I think he could go pretty quick here. T. Higgins is probably, like you said, going to go pretty quick too. But there's a whole bunch of others out there. Hamler from Penn State, big time player. Pittman from USC. Just a whole bunch. They're figured to be 12 or 13 in the first 2 rounds from receivers. And I think,
how many times have I told you about the wide receiver kid from Liberty? Antonio Gandy. I think that kid is going to shock people when he gets to the NFL.
Gandy Golden could be a monster.
Yeah, Gandy Golden,
big target, and I think he will. I could see him going today. And my special guy is, of course, Lynn Bowden from Kentucky. I think they'll end up, whoever gets him is going to be so happy, and he can do so. But he might go later today, or he might even wait till Saturday to go. But it is a deep pool of receivers, and I think we'll see. We might see another 6 or 7 go here in the second round. We got 6 in the first round yesterday, correct?
Yeah, and buddy, I'm telling you. We sit there and I don't know if it's sports talk fodder or the things, something to talk about. There were GMs that said, hey, the mocks aren't even close.
Yeah.
But we sat here for 5 weeks. Brady's not there. And, oh, boy, for the maybe Belichick, can they do something? And they go up and nah. Belichick, what does he do? He trades down and he gets more picks. This guy, he's sitting back laughing at everybody going, you think Belichick's I'm going to prove to you it wasn't Tom Brady, it was me. He's sticking with what he does.
Yes, and there's going to be a few things still after the draft that I think
Andy Dalton.
Well, Dalton and Cam is still out there, and
can Cam Newton and Bill Belichick coexist? That's what I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. But I mean, the fact that he's taken they took a chance on Antonio Brown last year. They took Randy Moss in the past had that, and I mean Gronk was eccentric. In the clubhouse, Cam has never been regarded as a problem. He's just a diva for the media, the way he dresses and all that. And I think that this is a guy who could still come out there and end up starting at quarterback in a couple of different spots. This is a former MVP, little damaged, but somebody's going to take a chance on Cam. And
but you're right, and you know, and we're old guys, Bruce.
Yes.
Sorry to break it to you.
Yes,
and you sit there. It's funny, Mike. I'm on the patio last night, and whatever song they were singing a song before the NFL draft, and I'm like, God. And it just hit me. I'm like, oh my God. Like I turned to my parents, like when we were kids, we liked the Beatles and your parents hated that, and I'm listening and my granddaughter's out here and I go, you like that? And even she didn't. And I'm sitting, oh my God, I've turned into my parents, but and again, this would be an old guy thing. I mean, the Cam Newton stuff, I'm sorry, you're, I don't begrudge anybody for if that's how you want to be and blah, blah, but not a quarterback. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like, man, you're the face of the franchise and you're out there and yeah, hey, ain't that a fancy outfit? And great, you can rock the fancy outfit. But when you do something like that, I mean, you're just putting a billboard up. Hey, everybody, look at me. And the quarterback, you don't want to be the me guy. You want the quarterback to be the guy that makes guys and everybody around them better. And maybe I'm wrong, but I look at that stuff and I go, I don't want that guy. And maybe that's just a function of being old. To me, it's red flag city.
Well, I actually agree with you there because I mean, selfishness, I have a problem with, and I don't mind quarterbacks being divas. You want them to sort of be, they don't have to be flamboyant. Well, maybe I don't know if diva is the right word. Flamboyant. They don't have to be flamboyant. You want them to be a leader.
You want them to be cocky and maybe obnoxious and overbearing. Yeah. But I'm just saying, yeah, in the room, if he was a great guy, who cares? And if all you do is win. But when I look at that, I just can't picture him being a great guy in the room when he's like, hey, he's telling the world, hey, look at me.
The all-time example there is Joe Namath, wearing the pink fur coats on the sideline and all this stuff.
Good point. He won,
and he won for a while. So you can be. But we'll see about
that. That's a good point. To be completely fair, that's a great point. And I'm saying I could be wrong.
Yeah, but we'll see. I think he will. Well, I would watch him more than any. There's a few quarterbacks still out there. The Dalton thing. Something is going to happen with Dalton. They're going to release him. I think they're still trying to trade Dalton, and that could even happen today. Because they weren't ever going to get a first-round pick for Dalton. And they have to do something with him. He puts them over the cap this year. So they're either going to release him after the draft and give themselves some more room to sign some other guys, or they're going to trade him today.
Speaking of trades, I think some people are going to trade up. I think I think there'll be unless he goes right away, I can see some trades in the very, very, very early in this draft. I think some people are going to trade up. I think the polarizing guy would be Epinesa in terms of somebody trading up to get him. And then obviously you're sitting there with DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, and Taylor, the running backs. There could be some activity in that regard. And from the running backs perspective, I'm going to call my shot here. It was all predicated. You couldn't do it on day one. And the Bills would have been sitting there, wanting to see what the board was doing. To me, and the minute Edwards-Helaire come off the board, I'm convinced I think they make a trade and get Fournette today.
Yes, I could see that for sure. And I could see a little bit of action for the running backs.
What would a guy like that cost, Bruce? I mean, I could see maybe you can get him for a fifth rounder, but I think it's probably going to cost you at least a fourth. That would be my guess.
I was going to say a four. A four, but
I'd gladly do it if I were the Bills.
Oh, I would too. You talk about upside. I mean, if he's right, I mean, you're talking an elite running back. Now it's getting him right, and there's a guy who's had recurring injuries too. But if he's good.
Oh, boy. Let me tell you something, Bruce. You know how this stuff goes. And everybody's a shiny toy when you go look at highlights.
Yeah.
But I did when this kind of surfaced a little bit, and I went back and I looked at his stuff. I mean, he had 1,129 yards last year with a horrible football team. And he's a box in 15 games because he was suspended for a game. He's a box of rocks. But if he goes to the team with a good culture and he behaves. But I watched the highlights of this guy, and I'm like, yikes. I mean, other than, your perception of the guy is he's an idiot.
Yeah.
But, boy, you watch him play, and for a power back who can get to the edge, he catches the ball exceptionally well. Honestly, if his head's screwed on right, he's Derrick Henry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think if he would be worth it to me. And I've been a Fournette fan a lot, but it's just keeping him on the field. I'll tell you another one today. You mentioned Henry. Here's just a back to keep an eye on. Somebody's going to get very well rewarded by A.J. Dillon from Boston College.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about a sledgehammer power back. There's room in the NFL for guys like that. He's not,
no doubt,
and he's not quite as big as Henry. He weighs about as much as Henry, but that same style. You talk about a one-man gang in college. You talk about an offense that they ganged up on him. Again, at Boston College, we watched them the last couple of years. It was him against the world, and he posted some huge numbers there, punishing back. So I wonder.
You're right. Short term. I'd be great. I honestly, again, being just on the running backs and the Bills thing, if they don't get Fournette, I think Taylor, if he was there, they'd jump. But the one thing you get with a guy like Taylor and Dillon, I think short term, you're looking good.
Shelf life, yeah.
But those guys get killed in college when they ride a guy like that. I mean, you would think a shorter window, a shelf life for guys like that.
Yeah, I think it's running backs in general. I mean, Fournette. I mean, he's been hurt every year, so it's like it can happen for running backs. But you're right; they've taken a lot of wear and tear. The other thing we mentioned Taylor. I think in general the Wisconsin runners, as opposed to the Georgia runners. Which is why I think Swift will go ahead of Taylor. The Georgia runners, if we're looking at that as a measuring stick, have generally performed a lot better in the NFL than the Wisconsin runners. And so I think that sort of might push Taylor down a bit. The Monty Ball and the other backs in recent years that just have not stuck, really not made much of a dent in the NFL. I think Taylor's better than most. And even back to Ron Dane, Taylor's really good. But I think the Georgia pedigree, I think, is going to push Swift up very high in the second round. I thought he was going to be the first running back pick, like I mentioned, but I think he will go early in round 2.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today simply by going to the website at betmaker.com. Bengals atop the clock in round 2. Let's just very quickly. I believe that Epinesa, someone's coming up to get this guy. But you're sitting there and you got Burrows. Do you come right out of the gate swinging and get the guy a weapon with the injury concerns with A.J. Green? Is Higgins a guy you'd look at right at the top, or Mims, a wide receiver, right out of the gate?
It's possible. They did spend free agent dollars to bring Green back, but you're right, he's a question mark. The other big free agent money they spent was on defense. So it's possible they go for a wide out there, and there's still some good ones. Higgins is one who comes to mind. He might be able to step in there for Green. I would not be surprised, though. I think some of the best values, some of these defensive ends, Epinesa, Gross Matos from Penn State also did not go in the first round. That hurt some Big Ten props in the first round. Those two guys didn't go. I think the Big Ten landed at 4.
That was the only prop I liked was the under in the Big Ten thing, because there were 3 gut cinches and then some guys that were a coin flip, and with a few other wacky moves. That was and that was a plus price. That was honestly, God, the only one I really kind of fell in love with was the under in the Big Ten deal. And maybe that's just a perception. The other thing, funny, but you tell me if it's a perception thing, but as a long-standing, diehard, frustrated Bills fan, for whatever reason, as long as I've been alive, they had these tentacles to Clemson. And it's like, please, for the love of God, just stay the hell away from Clemson. There's one guy that worked, and that's all the way back to Jerry Butler. Wow. But after that, you're sitting there with Perry Tuttle, C.J. Spiller, and then they get Shaq Lawson, and all 3 of them massively underachieved. It's almost that buyer beware that some of these guys that are a shiny toy in college, it's part of it is they're surrounded by great players.
Yeah, and it does seem to work like that. That's why I think the Georgia running back thing. Look at all the Georgia running backs over the years that have done really, really well, and even now, what didn't Nick Chubb lead the league last year in rushing or close to it? And I mean, it's just been a conveyor belt there. And that's why I think Swift is going to go pretty good here. But we'll see. We'll see what the Bengals do here, and we'll see what they could well go for a wideout, like you mentioned. So I think it's there, or they go for one of those top flight defensive ends who are still on board.
How about tonight? Here it is. Wow. The Patriots are picking 37th. So what is that? The 6th pick? 32, 33, 34, 35. Yeah, the 7th pick. No, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. They're the 6th pick of the second round. Now, if he doesn't come off the board, I could see them taking a guy like Epinesa. I could see them taking the tight end. It seems like low-hanging fruit because Gronk's gone.
Yep.
But smart guy, the tight end that's available. But I got a funny feeling, Bruce, that they looked at this board and they dropped down and everybody was talking about Love. I just think all Jalen Hurts did was win. And, everybody was trying to make a case for the Patriots to go get Love. And I think Belichick's sitting there going, I'll take that kid.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. There's one other thing about Hurts is that Nick Saban still loves Hurts. And I'm sure we were talking all about the report that Saban might have given Belichick on Tua. Well, how about Hurts? He gave him his blessing to transfer last year. He knew it was the best thing for him to go to Oklahoma. But he loved the kid. And that's the other connection back to Saban, where I'm sure he's been given the green light by his old buddy Saban to look at a guy like Hurts. So, yeah, that is definitely possible. He was a guy I was going to mention. Somebody's going to be really happy with him. I like Hurts more than Jacob Eason and some of these other guys, and Fromm, some of the other guys we talk about in the second-round quarterback picks. By the way, Kmet from Notre Dame, the tight end, he was the guy I had targeted for the Patriots if they kept their first-round pick, and he was the guy I thought they would pick. He's the top tight end on the board, and he's a very good receiving tight end. Very athletic, and there's room for a guy like that to make an impact. So that wouldn't surprise me either, but I think you might have something there with Hurts. I would not be surprised if he ends up a Patriot.
Other takeaways from the draft?
Not too much. Just the same old. I mean, there's a mountain of information. It takes a while for this stuff to resonate and settle where you can start making opinions on stuff. Like we mentioned at the start, the GMs make mistakes all the time, and to judge the draft right away, I never do that. And I rarely question picks too. You question picks, even in the thing we did yesterday on the radio. It's like arguing with your wife. Why? I mean, it doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just no reason to question picks. These guys, they make mistakes all the time. I'd rather just let it go out and settle. But it's still fun to talk about. And some of those special guys that we like, Hurts is one of them. My guy Bowden might be another one. By the way, quarterbacks, you're wondering too about some of the other guys out there, and I mentioned Perkins from Virginia. He may not go until tomorrow if he goes at all. And Gordon from Washington State, he had better numbers than Minshew at Washington State that year with Leach, and I think somebody will be happy with him. He could be the next Minshew this year.
And a kid, I bet you, has a little chip on his shoulder. We'll see how he goes, is Diggs out of Alabama, the DB.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I thought he could middle first round guy, and I think McKinney's another one from Alabama too. So I think those guys go within the first half of the second round.
So the one thing is, lots to talk about. Now we just want to see what happens on the field, and let's pray to God that we're seeing that.
Oh yeah. That's the big cloud on the horizon. But hopefully that'll work out. The other thing too, you mentioned earlier in the segment here, Brian, trades. They keep happening today. You get more of them actually in the second day, and there's going to be
absolutely. Well, I think you would look at Tampa Bay, where you would think that a guy like O.J. Howard might be on the move. I mean, there are many teams.
Sure.
There are named players that are out there.
Oh yeah, you'll get a lot more activity in the second round. It's always amazing how these draft choices move around, and some of them start thinking about next year's draft too, and they start moving those picks as well. But we'll see. And some of these teams that didn't have a first round pick, your guys, the Bills, Rams, Pittsburgh, we'll see. They'll finally get involved here today as well. So we'll see what's going. Pittsburgh's an interesting one there because do they have a successor to Big Ben on the roster? And do they think Mason Rudolph's the guy? So I'm kind of interested in what Pittsburgh's going to do when it finally takes its first swing.
Yeah, and the one thing with Pittsburgh is they are among the teams that were interested in or have expressed interest, I believe, in Fournette.
Yep.
And, Connor's a decent back. But I think that maybe just philosophically, Bruce, I think it's proven. You look at what the Niners did last year. That's why I wanted the Edwards-Helaire kid. Yeah, it's like he's kind of the same thing that Singletary is. But, that's great, whatever floats your boat. But I don't think you need the big power back anymore. You can get away with guys like the Edwards-Helaire kid. You can't see him behind the line, so he's good in short yardage. But the Niners proved the point last year where you had Coleman, Breida, and Mostert.
Yeah,
you basically had three almost identical guys.
Yeah,
and it worked. So I could see Pittsburgh maybe doing something if they don't get in on Fournette.
Yeah,
maybe they're active and jump up the ladder. They're at 49. One of these guys we talked about fell to them, so they just take a running back, or maybe they make a move up. DeAndre Swift and
sure.
I could see the Steelers maybe going running back. Yeah,
I could too. And wear and tear on James Conner, they'd like to reduce that a little bit, and he'd be more effective in tandem with the guy too. One other thing about the Steelers, I do not think. They've already got a guy like Fromm or Eason on the roster and Mason Rudolph. So I don't think they would go for a draft necessarily a guy, maybe a flyer in the late rounds. They're more likely to look for a veteran quarterback available to back up Big Ben. That's a spot I could see Cam landing if he doesn't mind going in there as a backup. Because listen, Big Ben's 38, 17th year in the league. He's coming off a surgery where they reattached three tendons to his right throwing elbow. I would say they might need some more cover there. But in that case, I think they'd be more likely to look for a veteran backup right now to step right in. That's where I could see Cam ending up. We
could go all day doing this, and it's fun. Let's wrap it up with this, though. I'm going to call my shot. I'm going to say Belichick takes Hurts at 37. So what does that mean to Eason? And who might target him?
That's a good question. Eason, if Eason is indeed the next guy who goes, I'm not sure that he's going to go before Hurts. I'm really not. I think.
Oh no, honestly, I think. I mean, specifically, I think Belichick would take Hurts. All right, so I'm calling that shot, and then that means Eason sitting there and is maybe the guy that dropped a touch, not a lot, but does Jacksonville possibly in the second round say, hey, look, we got Minshew, but are we sure about that?
Yeah. Now that Jacksonville is the other spot I see possibly for Cam. And so it's Jacksonville or Pittsburgh, I think, for him. But yes, I could see that. I could see that happening. And
how about a team like Indy? Are you sold on Brissett?
No, they're not. I mean, I think they figured he would be a backup anyway for them, even moving forward. They think
who was their backup last year when Brissett? I'm losing my marbles. You remember?
I am temporarily drawing a blank on that as well. But a lot of Indy season sort of draws a blank. After midway in the season last year, that's how it.
I'll find it here quickly, but it's funny. I mean, you try to target these things, and in the quarterback position is such an inexact science.
Brian Hoyer was the one last year who came. I
swear I was gonna say Hoyer, and Hoyer's now with the Patriots.
Yeah, right. So
I think they've got to get a quarterback, don't they?
Yeah. Or just one other last quarterback note. Next year, Trevor Lawrence is coming out. I know he didn't play well, probably coming out next year. I know he didn't play well in the game against LSU, but he did have an arm injury in that game. He will be better, I think, than any of these guys next year. So just keep that in mind.
There you go.
Burrow, all of them. I'd rather have Lawrence. We'll see.
Good stuff as always, Bruce. It was great fun, and honestly, I think the intrigue last night was. It's funny. Round one, they're the shiny toys.
Yeah.
But you build football teams in the second, third, fourth, and fifth rounds.
Yeah.
And it's Gatling gun tonight. And now you're bringing 5 teams in that didn't have picks. I think there'll be activity. I think there'll be a handful of trades, actual players that are traded, picks that are traded. I love the second night.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it goes faster, too, because there's faster between the picks. Once you get beyond the first round. So it's good. It's good fun. There's picks being made while they're analyzing the previous picks. So they end up falling behind a lot in the coverage, but it's good fun the second day too.
Always great stuff, Bruce. Thank you.
Okay.
Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet. I'm Brian Blessing. A little NFL draft talk for you.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com, and reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction, as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At Betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling, an approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.